Hello, my friends. Today I thought I would do some random things, some techniques and tips about various things. Decorating some cards is mainly what it is about. I wanted to start with this idea. This is some English Spanish flashcards that I got at Dollar Tree, and they have the English word on the colored side, and then on the back they have the Spanish word with the border around it. I like them because they're pretty and they're colorful, but they're shiny and modern and childish looking, and I thought, well, what can I do to these to make them fit in with my journals better? And the idea I came up with was to use an embossing folder and sand it to get this effect. This one was red, obviously, on this back. And this is the embossing folder I used. I don't know if you can see this or not. I'll put this piece of felt in here to kind of give you an idea of what this design looks like. It's just some swirls, and then it has this background with lines in it. What I did is I embossed a plain index card with it first and kind of situated it, thinking about where the word is on this and where I wanted the design to be. And then once I had an idea about it, I went ahead and put the card in the embossing folder and tried to line the word up where it'd be even with these lines that go across. Now, you may not have this exact embossing folder, and I'll show you some other ideas I had for things you might have and want to use. So let's do this. And let me set this aside so I can get my embossing machine up here. Okay. I've got a bunch of stuff here. Generally, I have to just play around with my plates and everything to see what's going to be the right thickness to emboss this folder. And what I like to do, let's scoot this over so you can see a little better. What I like to do is send the open end through the machine first, because this end being folded like that, it makes it slightly thicker and it makes it harder to get it started. So I have my base plate in this, what is this called? Thin die adapter. I'm not sure I need that. We'll see as soon as I try this out. Oh, I need the other plate. Okay, I may not need that thin die adapter on this. No, I don't. You'd think I'd have this figured out by now. My plates have gotten so warped, though, sometimes it's hard to know. I think it does affect the way the machine. It's not going to work either. On this one, I think what I did was I used this. This is a mat I got at Dollar Tree, a little cutting mat, and I just cut the side of it off to be the width to go in here. And since it is slightly softer than these plates, I'm going to go slow so I don't shake too much. Or maybe I should go fast and get it over with in a hurry. Anyway, what I was saying is, since it's softer, it's slightly thinner, and it lets you send the embossing folder through the machine easier. So then you just can take it out. And I got it pretty straight on there. That looks pretty even with that colored border on it. So that's good. And then what I do after that is I just take some sandpaper. This is out of a pack I got at Dollar Tree. It has small pieces in it. And this is P150, which is a pretty fine sandpaper. And I like to put a paper down to catch all the mess, because it does kind of get messy. And I hope this doesn't shake when I do this, but it may. And then you just go over lightly, and it picks up the embossed parts and takes the color off of that and leaves the rest of it colored. And I like to go across this like this to just kind of to tone the whole thing down. And I hope that sanding sound is not covering up my words, but anyway, maybe it'll be okay. And you just, do what you want to do to make it look like you think it should look. Get a little bit more on this side, just all over. You can go this way also. And you may want to go along the edges too, to kind of make them lighter. And then I just take a dry baby wipe that I've been using to mop up ink and things. This one's kind of dirty, but maybe this side will be clean enough. And just wipe it off to wipe off that excess sanded stuff that was on there. So that may need a little bit more there, so I'll just go back and do a little bit more on that. Just want to tone it down a little bit. Like that. So that is the, that's now aura. So you got a tip for embossing and a Spanish word at the same time. I had some other embossing folders. You may not have the one I had, this one with the swirls on it. I got this on Amazon, and I don't know, it didn't have a name. If I find a number or something on this, I'll put it in the description. This one is another one I got on Amazon, and I thought that using just that side part on a card would be pretty, and then you could have something else written out on next to it. And this is a script one, and I thought the same thing would be fun for that. I'll make some pieces with these two and put pictures at the end. That is tip number one, or technique number one, whatever you want to call it. This is something I did a while back. I did this with this embossing folder. I think I had embossed this piece. It was just a scrap. And I was thinking about, well, I wonder how it would be to color that with inks. And so that's what I did. And then I decided, well, I'll do another one with kind of fall colors. And I made this card. You could maybe write on the back of it, but it'd be kind of difficult. You might, if you wanted to use it as a writing surface, I probably would glue another piece of paper on there to write on. But I thought that turned out kind of pretty. And I just used my daubers, these, and this one, just that kind. And then I didn't use the brush on this one, I don't think. If you wanted to use the brushes, it probably would color the background more than these. This just kind of hits the high places on it so that it ends up just being the image that's mostly colored. And it's not perfect, but I don't mind that because, you know, it's art. So anyway, that's another idea about how to use your embossing folders and your color, your inks. Another thing I did, and I've done this before, I used this stencil and stenciled the design on this. This is just an index card. Well, it's not an index card. It's a IBM card that they printed them up at my uncle's company when he worked there way back in the 60s as memos to, from, and put the date on it and make a little notation with the cards that they were punch cards. This one was not punched. It was printed for that purpose, not to be used in the computers. Anyway, I put this on where I thought it would look pretty and just used the daubers and colored in the various places on, you know, the green here and some gold. And that was Rusty Hinge and Wild Honey. And then the green is Bundled Sage. And that looks like it's kind of a combination of colors crossing there. It makes kind of a fun journal card. Or you could make it into a tag or whatever you wanted to do. Put some ribbon on it or something. Put ribbon across the top. Something like that. So then after you do that, you've got an inky stencil. And what I did is on this, I sprayed the stencil with water and placed it down on here and just rubbed my hand over it and got lots of ink on my fingers at the same time. And then when I lifted it up, I had this design on there. I've done this before. I did something similar to this in my boho journal. I had a page that had this kind of design on it. So that's another idea for how to use your stencils and color. Now, another thing you can do is you can emboss with these stencils. Not all of them are going to work real well. Some of them are way thin, very thin, just barely there. Some I've gotten from Dollar Tree or like that. This one was one I got at Walmart a good while ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, maybe longer, I don't know. And it's thicker. I don't know how thick it is, but it's a little bit thicker. And what I did is I sprayed a card with some water, and I put the stencil on top of it. It still had a little bit of ink on it. So I ended up with a stenciled image. I don't know if you can see that or not. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go over this real lightly with this dauber, I think. and just see if it'll show up. Another way to do this, though, would be to do your inking, and then run it through your Big Shot machine to get the embossed part on there. But this isn't too bad. It kind of tones the whole paper down and picks up most on the embossed areas, which is kind of a neat effect. That is not showing up well enough as I would like. There we go. That's a little better. Hopefully you can see that. So that's an idea. This is another one I embossed with the stencil. This is a stencil that came out of a set to be used in daily planners, and I thought that design would look nice, and so I did another card with that. I just sprayed the card with water and put this on it like I wanted it to be and ran it through my embossing machine. And so that's how that came about. And I have this one. This is a Tim Holtz stencil that has the swirls on it, which I like this design a lot. And I thought that I would just show you what it's like. I could spray the paper. I've done that before. Spray the paper and lay it down. But I kind of like this effect with spraying the stencil first. I just have these little spray bottles I got from Walmart. Put some water in it. You can use distilled or filtered or whatever if you want to. I think I probably just got this out of the faucet. So I'm just going to spray it kind of in the direction of the trash can so it doesn't go all over everything. And then I'm just going to place it down on the paper and rub it down like that. And you can kind of start to see those colors blending off of there. And it's always a surprise what you get when you pick it up. See, that looks completely different from how this one did. This one it has lots of little speckled designs on there, which is kind of neat too. Almost like it's drawn. And it also probably depends on how much ink you have on your stencil. And I think just to see what happens, I'm going to spray the paper. Spray this piece of paper. And place the stencil down on it. We'll see if we get anything else from that. And you probably, if you wanted to, you could just take a brush and just go over it again here. Just to kind of have more color on it. I don't know what that's going to do. This is all experimental right here. So that kind of has what I just stenciled on it and a little bit of the other. Not much, just a little bit there. So anyway, that's an idea for that. I really liked the way this one turned out. I put a lot of ink on that to make it show up on here. And then it had a lot on it. So those are a couple of ways that this turned out. Okay, so that is playing with stencils. And what else do I have? I have all this old wallpaper that was from my mother-in-law's estate. It's been in this roll like this, rolled up for who knows how long. Probably since at least the 60s. I think she had this paper on a wall that was a living room wall. There's a picture of my husband standing in front of it that we have somewhere. I don't know where it is, or I'd show it to you. Anyway, it's really hard to work with it because it's rolled up. And one day I was thinking, I wonder if I could just, you paste it on the wall, so you put wet on it. And I decided I was just going to tear off a piece and spray it with water and flatten it out, and it worked. I left it to dry with some rulers on the edges of it. This is a piece I had laying here on my desk, and I just sprayed the back of it with water before I started doing this, maybe an hour ago, and just flattened it out, laid it down, and put something on heavy on it. And it basically is not rolling up like it was anymore. So that is a tip for flattening out wallpaper. This idea is something I learned from Kathleen Maurer. She calls it dry decoupaging, and I think that's a good name for it. I want to put these leaves on this, and this is a scripture that I liked that says, "Let us search out and examine our ways and turn back to the Lord. Let us lift up our hearts and hands to God in heaven." I just wanted to mention here that you just use the one layer, the designed layer of the napkin to do this decoupage. So I just take my Elmer's Craft Bond extra strength glue stick and go, I want it to be on this side. I'm going to put something under that though, so I don't get glue all over everything. I'm just going to put some glue here and across the top like that. Pretty good amount of glue on there to make sure it sticks down, especially around the edges. Always the edges that we worry about. And then I'm just going to put this down. Now, I can't see it on the white, so I'll do this way. Okay, let's just do this. There's some writing right there that I don't want on there, so I'm going to skip up just a little bit and do that. And then you just press it down with your fingers. That's all you really have to do. And then sometimes I do this. I take a nail file or my sanding block or just a piece of sandpaper and just hold it where that is kind of stiff there on the edge and just go across it. Might be best if you could let it dry for a little bit. That glue kind of makes it a little bit soft when it's wet still. So let's see if that did it. There we go. It just comes off. Like that. And then on this edge, you could take a wet paintbrush and go around the edge, or you could just do what I'm going to do. Just start tearing it. Kind of hold your thumb there to keep it from going too far. I just want it to be a little bit ragged around the words. Need to go a little bit further. I was not quite. I think I got glue on that, so it's going to have to. I can fix that though. I can just make the word stand out a little bit more, like that. And then take this little bit off, or you can trim that off with scissors. Also, just line it up there and trim it off. And that one could stand a little more glue right there, so I'll put a little more glue on it. And do that. And then I think I want to put some Vintage Photo Distress Oxide ink around the edges to kind of finish it off here. Except I think I want to round the corners. So I'll do that first. Okay, this is the 4mm corner I'm going to use, which is the smallest one. Just to take that point off, basically, is what it is. You could also just nip it with your scissors if you preferred the quick way, or you don't have that size corner rounder. Okay. And see, I didn't get that quite to the edge there, so I'm going to conceal that with some ink. And this would be a card you could put in a journal. It could be a journaling card. You could have the scripture on the front and write on the back of it. Or you could glue it down as a pocket, even. Okay. So I can get around this corner a little quicker here. Okay. Kind of made that crooked. Okay, I'm going to grab my pen again and fix that L. These are some Tombow dual brush pens I got at Walmart on sale because they were a little more than I wanted to pay when they were full price. I like to be thrifty or cheap. Either way you want to call it, it's fine with me. Okay, oops, this has a brush point, and it also has just a nib point that, whoops, there we go. And I'm just going to make that L there again. And that kind of made it bleeding, and it made it a little large, so that's fine too. So we'll just leave that. And that right there, I think that was some of the ink that got on there, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, things I do are never perfect, so I probably had ink on my fingers what it was. So anyway, there is that. And I think that makes a pretty journaling card. We're going to do one more. Stencil something with ink. I'm going to do something that's fairly simple because I don't want to take up too much time. But I want it to be one of these because this is the thicker stencils. Or maybe I'll do this one. I did this one. Y'all, I'm losing it. Okay. What I did was I stenciled with distress inks on there, and I have the stencil taped down with washi tape to hold it in place. Then what I'm going to do is bring my Big Shot back up here. And this one I think I can just do maybe with, I'm guessing again, I think I may need this to do this. This goes on here. The plates, and then this one. And I'll be interested to see how this turns out because we did the one that I had colored after I embossed it. Is what I did. And I run these through about 3 or 4 times to just make sure it embosses it as much as possible because these are not embossing folders, they're stencils. And there's not much depth there in the design. So let's get this finished here. Apologize for the shaking. Okay. Set this back down. Okay, so we'll take the tape off. I sprayed this with water earlier, and it was still a little bit damp. I sprayed it on the back, and I don't know if it was really damp enough to make the difference. I didn't get a very good impression on that. I think I did better when I did it the other way around. Sometimes you also, when you're doing your embossing, maybe you don't have the right, it's too tight with some of them and it's too loose to make the impression with some of the others. You can cut some thin cardboard. This is just some that was in a package with, I think it has stencil in it, and it's very thin. And I cut it in half, and I used, this one was supposed to be the size of my other mats, and it kind of wasn't. But anyway, I used both of them when I was embossing something that's here somewhere. This one. This one is the one that I did before that showed up after I put the ink on top after it was embossed. And I wonder if that would work on this. But I don't think it's embossed enough. It shows up the embossing, the inking of it though. And it's kind of cute. Okay, so anyway, what I was saying is you can use these shims, I think is what they call them, if you don't have enough pressure on your embossing folders for it to make a good impression. You can add 1 or 2 little pieces of cardboard in under there, and it will help. And mainly, they give you recommendations for it, but a lot of times when you're doing something a little bit different, it's just a matter of trial and error, seeing what works and what doesn't. And what I do is if I put something on and I really have a hard time turning the crank to get it to go through, I stop and don't use that. Or if it goes through and you can tell it didn't do anything at all, then I'll add something else. Just kind of trial and error till you get it to a point where you feel like it's going through and it's doing something. It's enough pressure on it to make it happen. So anyway, I was going to do these. I'm just going to do some cards. Let's move this out of the way and bring this back. Now, I don't know what I'm going to need on this. I don't think I'm going to need that one. I probably will need that, and maybe not that. Okay, so I'll give it a little spritz on the side. I'm going to put the design on the left side. I don't know why. That just strikes me as being the right way to do it. You could put it across the top if you wanted to. And this one, I think this side will work well to have on the card. And you can see where to place it in there to make it the design be what you want it to be. And get it straight and everything. And then it needs to be on a plate. Do it like that. And sometimes it helps if you put it at just a little bit of an angle. You don't have too much room to turn it sideways, but you can turn it just a little bit, and it will give it an opportunity to catch on part of it, and then the rest of it will go through easier. And let's see. Yeah, that's going to work, I think. And I just like to go over it a couple of times. Sorry for the shaking. Okay. Take this off. And then you can just leave it plain, or you could add some color to it. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's the problem with white embossing. It's very faint. But that shows you the flowers on the edge of it. And you could go back with some color on top of that. It's wet right now, so I don't want to do that. And then I thought I'd do the other one, too, that we have here, which is the writing, the script, the faux script. Okay. I don't know which way this is supposed to be going. I think it goes this way. So I'll need to put it on this side. That much. And where's my other plate? There it is. Okay. Now see, that's really hard to turn right there. I don't know why this one is different from the first one I did. I'm going to turn it this way, and maybe it will grab and go on through. Once it gets started, it will go on. Sorry for all the shaking. I think my camera just moved completely that time. Okay. And there's that. I think that's upside down. It's really hard to tell with that faux writing. But anyway, I will put some ink on these and put pictures at the end so you can see what the final result looks like. That's my project for today, just some random thoughts, and I thought I would go back through and show you which ones we did again. So we did the flashcards, English, Spanish flashcards, and this is the one we did today, and this is the one I did previously. They're similar. This swirl is a little bit further over on that one, on it, but this has a little more on this side. So it's just what you want to see on there. If you want more space for the word, maybe the word's bigger, you might want to make it have more space. So that's that one. Then coloring and embossed design is this that I did. I made a journal card out of it, and this is the one I did before with just the scrap of paper. Stenciling with inks, and then embossing is this one that I did with the you can feel the embossing on there, but it didn't do a very good job. And then this one is the one I embossed and then went over it with the dauber, with the ink, and picked up the color on the raised areas. Add a little more on that. And it kind of picks up the background a little bit. You could go around the edge with another color even and just make it a little more fancy if you wanted to. Then we sprayed the stencils with water and put them down. I almost don't have room on here. Maybe if that wasn't quite so tall there. Move it down a little bit. That's the one I sprayed and put, and then this one I used, went over it with an anchor. right there. And then the other one I did was this one. This is what I did. I stenciled, and then I used the inked side of the stencil. Spread water on the stencil and put it down. This one I sprayed the paper. This one I sprayed the paper and put the stencil down. This one I put water on the stencil and put it down, and I also did that one this way. And then we have our two embossed cards here that we will ink up those. Spray in the back of old wallpaper to make it flatter, and then the dry decoupage. That is my tips and techniques for today. I hope that you found something interesting here that you can use in your journaling, and that you have a fun and creative week. See you soon. Bye-bye.